Get ready for the Ochelli effect.
I'm a big fan of the show.
Chuck Ochelli, and he's been known for many years as a blind JFK researcher specializing in intelligence agency involvement in multiple assassination, propaganda, and other global criminal operations in the 20th and 21st centuries.
Your listeners are extremely fortunate to have you, and everybody at AFR I know loves you, man.
We should learn from our relatively recent history, my brother. That's where I'm coming from. I say all power to the people.
And now, the most underrated voice in all media, the alternative's alternative, Chuck Ochelli.
8th day of March, allegedly, according to that thing we call a calendar, precisely 7 days before the Ides of it, I suppose. This is the Ochelli Effect, broadcast live from American Freedom Radio at AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Of course, you're welcome to the show no matter how you encountered it via your fondle slab of choice, your applicable application, or otherwise. Now that I've spoken really quickly and gotten all that out of the way, it is Wednesday, and this is going to be an interesting show as far as I'm concerned because I have no idea what's going to happen as per usual. And, you know, the opening music starts to play and I begin to choke on the fluid I'm drinking. Always tells me it's going to be a good one. And it's also a good one because Sherry Wisdom is with me, who is the host of Elemental Evolution. And I got a weenie dog starting to growl by my feet. Anyway, Sherry Wisdom, maybe the weenie dog is growling because of Sherry. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing fabulous. How are you tonight?
I'm doing all right. I'm a little concerned that the weenie dog's growling at me, but anyway, she hasn't growled at anything.
The position that you're sitting in.
Oh, I'm sitting on the floor, you know.
Vulnerable.
Yes, very. So, you know, at the right height for the weenie dog. Of course, didn't even talk about who else is on with us tonight. Did I yet? I gotta calm this weenie dog down, though. This is so funny.
I think you just like saying that. That's what I'm thinking.
It's funny, man. It's a Mexican hot dog anyway because it's part Chihuahua and part Dachshund. You know, Dachshund. So, yeah, Lucy is her name. Anyway, stop growling, Lucy. Max Igan is with us. Okay, I haven't gotten to him yet, but trust me, I will real quickly. Also, Daniel Lewis Crumpton is going to be with us for both hours, the guy behind DownloadedContent.com and all that. But before I get all kinds of involved in strangeness with Daniel, let's first talk to Max. How you doing tonight, Max?
I'm doing well, Chuck. Thanks for asking me on, brother. And nice to be here. Always nice to be here. Nice to talk to you too, Sherry.
This is a loose situation tonight, Max. Usually I'm a little less distracted. It's kind of funny, but it's kind of a good thing, I think, to get distracted by the behavior of our animal friends and sometimes by nature itself because, man, if you get too locked into the artificial world around you, you get very lost, very disconnected, I would say, Max. And I gotta say, it's getting stranger and stranger out there. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, look, it is. I think there's an awful lot of distraction in play at the moment on the ground as well. I mean, the left-right paradigm, the identity politics everybody's caught up in, it's a hell of a time to be alive. It's like a circus at the moment, just watching the U.S. political situation. It's like a freak show. It really is. I mean, grab the popcorn. I said this when Trump got elected to grab the popcorn because we're going to be in for a ride with this one. And it's like, who needs reality TV when you've got the Trump presidency? It's anybody's guess what's going to happen from one day to the next with this man.
Yeah, well, there's identity politics, and then there's the politics of identity, because both things are going on. We had this women's march today, another one. Apparently, the grand strike, the day without a woman or whatever. Now, I heard about this on the mainstream. Didn't see any of it evident around me sitting where I am. But who knows what all this stuff means? I think people have gotten locked into being labeled. And I think they've decided that they can be subdivided in so many different ways that it's created its own storyline. And putting politics aside, you know, the general understanding of politics, I would say that the definition of the individual has gotten really twisted, Max.
Well, it has, and that's what this identity politics has done. I mean, it's everybody's chosen a side and everybody's allowing other people to speak for them. And really, we're seeing the whole freak show being exposed for what it is. I mean, people have got to step back from this and realize that there really are no sides. so much of this is theatre. They don't really care which camp you choose, as long as you choose one side and fight with the guys on the other side. You know, I think this is a really good opportunity for the people of America to step back and really see how they're being played and see how they're being manipulated. And a lot of people are failing to do that. And yeah, the news is just this ongoing thing, this barrage every day. Like we've just seen the release of the Vault 7 information, which is very important that this has come out, but it hasn't actually told us anything we didn't already know. I mean, we've been saying this for years. Yes, your television is spying on you, your phones are spying on you, your computers are spying on you. There is nothing that is safe. There is no encryption that works against the tools that these people have. And all this has come out now, so it's kind of exposed all that as well. What people aren't really looking at with this, though, of course, is the fact that how irresponsible the CIA has been in losing this data and losing all of these hacking tools, because now these tools are available to everybody. Anybody who can get hold of this code that's been released, it's all there. So now all the foreign governments have got it. Any hacker, any garden variety hacker can go and use these tools against anybody that they want. It's very, very irresponsible. But again, it hasn't told us anything we didn't already know. We know that this whole internet system has been set up as a surveillance system. Really, that's really what the web has been about. I mean, it's been a great boon to our lives, and as much as it's made the world smaller, it's given us contact with each other, but it's also allowed the powers that believe they be to have tabs on everybody. And that's a lot of what has happened, and that's what's been revealed by the release of this Vault 7 information. But again, like I said, it's nothing we didn't already know. Hopefully it will show people how they're being played, and hopefully it will show people that it doesn't really matter what government does. There are forces behind government that are really ruling the show. And all of this has happened because of our tolerance of it, essentially. I mean, that's what's brought the whole world to the state that it's in, is our tolerance of this. And hopefully this is going to give people a little bit of a kick up the backside and make them realise that they've got to be a little bit more responsible and stop tolerating this type of corruption, because it's so rampant in the world today. And this just shows how rampant it is. And it shows how ineffective our governments really are as well. You know, ultimately it's got to come down to the people. Hopefully this will provide that sort of an opportunity for them.
Well, yeah, you would think so, but at the same time, it seems to me as though, this should not be a shock to anybody, not even those who wanted to deny it for so many years, that, okay, you're just a crazy conspiracy guy because you're telling me, my TV can talk to my refrigerator and they can all speak to the microwave and give statistics on everything I'm eating, drinking, looking at, listening to, and saying. Yes, indeed, your cable boxes have had microphones in them for probably 30 years. All this stuff. It's amazing to me, though, that there are people that are still willing to deny it, despite the fact that this has been dumped out there. And to me, it's not even a question of, okay, now hackers can get a hold of it. Realistically, there's nothing to be hacked. This stuff was already available. It was built so that it could be available. This is really the voluntary surveillance system, right? Where you decide to participate in this stuff. So the more of it you participate in it, the more electronics you buy, the more stuff you register, the more you post to Facebook, the more you give away your information, the more they have. And at the end of the day, I've always felt kind of like nothing is really private anyway. Unless you can put yourself into a box, you can't possibly make a single move that is private. And realistically, again, I have to think to myself, well, it's not like you can't film something utilizing, I forget what they call it, the infrared, where they can pick up on the heat signature of an individual inside of that box too. So guess what? Privacy is a delusion at best. And it has been for a very long time. To me, it just seems like the timing of this dump of information is really just to keep people distracted, just like the upheaval or the illusion of upheaval in the political system is to keep people distracted. It's all to keep us distracted because they're actually preparing to do something in a pretty significant way, and they want to make sure that we're watching the magician's right hand while the left hand is in our pockets and around our throats, maybe. What do you think?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think this whole concept that Trump is the struggling underdog and all the neocons are trying to oppose him, I think this is theatre for the masses as well. And the timing of this release, as you say, this is perfect timing for this to be released while everybody's squabbling and infighting. You have this sort of loom up in the distance as well. And it's going to be washed away very, very quickly. People are going to forget about it. They're going to go back to the infighting. The externalization of the hierarchy, they're able to expose all of this stuff, and people just will allow it to go by the wayside. Oh, yeah, the government spies on us. We already knew that. And they'll just forget about it. It's like with the Snowden releases. Everyone was so up in arms when the Snowden report first came out, when he released all that information. And then the more he releases, people just say, oh, yeah, another report from Snowden. It doesn't matter. Another WikiLeaks data dump. It doesn't matter. We already know this. So, and it's all information that we already know. It all just basically confirms what we already know. But it's the externalization of the hierarchy. They're showing you just how corrupt they are, like with Pizzagate and everything. Okay, the world is run by pedophiles who are monitoring your every move. They're manufacturing all these wars. The whole lot has been contrived in order to lock you down into a slavery system. You're basically living in a people farm. And everyone goes, oh, right, okay, we've figured it all out now, and they go back to work. That's kind of what it's about. They just start squabbling with the other guys about their identity politics or whatever else they believe in. It's all about these beliefs. Get a belief, lock yourself into that belief, and fight with anybody who doesn't have the same belief as you, regardless of what it is. They don't care which side you're on. They don't care what the belief is, as long as you're locked into a belief and you're screaming at other people. That's what it's all about. And it's all divide and conquer. This whole divide and conquer strategy is so in play at the moment. If people think Trump is really this underdog who is so against all these people and so against the neocons. He gave a speech the other day, gave a meeting in front of a painting of Hillary Clinton. You think that was by mistake? Nope. He's friends with these people. Why hasn't he had her arrested already? Why hasn't he had the Clinton Foundation's assets frozen? Why hasn't he had DynCorp's assets frozen? Why is this company still being allowed to have government contracts? There's so many things that he's not doing, and there's so many things that people aren't looking at. But really, when you step back and look at it, nothing's changed. They're still spraying chemtrails in the sky. There's still this whole AI grid is being rolled out. They've still got the whole fiat money system in place. The pedophile rings are still running rampant around the world. The war on terror is still going. He's still calling Syria out as a civil war when it isn't. He's still posturing against Iran, posturing against Russia, still bombing Yemen. Nothing's changed. HAARP's still there, pumping frequencies into the sky, causing earthquakes and whatever else it's doing. Nothing's changed, folks. Everything is going along exactly the same as what it was, only everybody's now arguing over identity politics, and half of the independent media is turned into a cheer squad for Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is the state. Regardless of what you think of him, the state is the state, and the state is not your friend. And I can't see that he's really done anything to cause any real change. And in fact, I think America has been allowed to deteriorate to the point that it has, simply so Trump could come along and put a few Band-Aids on, like cancel the TPP, work to get the roads fixed, create a few jobs, get vaccinations investigated, all this sort of stuff, but just still continue the same globalist agenda. I think we're all just going in the same direction that we always have.
Well, right. All this is really is the shiny object, and this is funny because they started using this term recently in a lot of circles, the shiny object to keep you distracted. What happened to the whole allegation that, there was voter fraud? What happened to the whole, and believe me, I'm one of these guys who did not fall for the message, right, regarding this is different in any way, shape, or form. It's just one criminal for another, in my estimation. Trump works with, Russian criminals and all sorts of organized people, Italians for sure, maybe a little more street level than, the Clintons do, but maybe not. Depends on how you look at it, right? It's still all corporatist stuff. The corporations are still the dominant force, okay, being supported by the government or the government being supported by them. I'm not sure which way it actually works because it all seems to be so intermingled. It's the massive grid. And it hasn't changed in the least bit, except now we have 23 hours a day of coverage of everything this guy puts out on his Twitter account, and we're meant to keep track of that so that we don't realize that you're exactly right. The conditions have not changed. And in that way, though, I think this provides those of us who have a different point of view an opportunity here. The more that things don't improve in reality, the more that we'll be able to reach individuals who have the ability to still think for themselves. There is a tremendous population that no matter what you tell them, even if it's, raining acid on them and they're burning to death, they're not going to go inside of their homes and shelter in place, okay? They just won't. It doesn't matter what you do to them. They're sick, they're dying, they're sitting there, they're injecting exactly the poisons that they should not into their veins, and they'll keep doing it until they stop breathing. This is exactly what they will do because they insist upon it. I don't know why. I don't know why they refuse to see any of it, but there is a segment of the population that is just simply doomed. But it's not all of us, is it, Max?
Well, no, it's not all of us. I mean, many people can see what's going on, but, there's so much theatre involved in this. Even the whole concept that, the wiretaps and all this, that Obama's leading this coup against Trump. I mean, I can't honestly understand why anyone would be buying into this concept. I mean, Obama's a puppet. He's a figurehead. He's a mouthpiece. Obama isn't running anything. It's who's behind Obama that would be running this. I mean, Obama may be being hung out to dry for this, but it's not Obama. There's a whole mechanism that operates behind the president, that operates behind all of these people, that people are failing to see. They're just not looking at it. They're just so caught up in this whole left-right paradigm. Hopefully this will provide the opportunity for people to see what a farce this whole thing is, and that they have to lead themselves. I mean, the fact that Trump does use Twitter, he's kind of made things very human. He's kind of humanized the presidency. He's brought it down to street level, if you will. This guy is just a normal down-home guy like anybody else, and you can see that these aren't people who are important. These aren't anybody of importance. These are just average people like everybody else. Hopefully the world can see that now. Hopefully the American people can see that now, and hopefully they can see how they're being played and step back and look beyond the veil and look what's really going on here. I mean, the people farm is still raging. Even the amount of pedophiles that have been arrested, none of the big players have been arrested, none of the major players. Everything's being exposed now, and I think they're doing everything they can to distract people because they're scared to death. They're absolutely scared of how much awareness is growing in the world now. People are really stepping back and looking at this and seeing what a puppet show it is and what a complete farce the whole political system is. And I think people have had enough, and they've got to ramp things up as much as they can just to keep people distracted, to keep them entertained. Otherwise, they're just they're gonna step away from the whole thing, I think. I think the world is on the verge of doing that now. I mean, not just in America. We're seeing so many countries completely disillusioned with their governments, and I think it's a really good thing. So I hope that the circus continues and people see it for what it is a little bit more, I mean, the more he does, he just puts his foot in his mouth every day. And WikiLeaks reckons they've got a whole bunch more stuff to release as well. They say this is like 1% of what's actually in this vault. So who knows what else we're going to see from these people. But again, it's all exposing the hierarchy. It's what we do with the information and whether we seize the opportunity that it provides. The problem is that people look at all this and they turn to government to fix the problem. And even the government is playing this as if they're going, well, where did the leak come from? That's what's important. Well, no, it isn't. It's not important where the leak came from. What's important is the fact that the CIA has just been exposed as the criminal organization we've been telling everybody is for the last 10 years. So why don't we do something about that? Why don't we pull this organization down like JFK wanted to do? And you might stop some of the crime and some of the wars and some of the coups and some of the corruption and drug trafficking and human trafficking that's happening all around the world because the CIA has its fingers in all of it.
Oh, so yeah, but Max, it's only been 50 times that we've showed how criminal the CIA is, how murderous it is. You got to get to 51, right? It's got to be at least one more time, Max. How many times do we have to show people that they actually murder people, cause genocides to be set off, topple governments, which cause countless individuals to suffer? How many times do we have to show people that? Oh, no, wait a minute. We're going to worry about them hacking into your cell phone. Come on.
Yeah. Exactly.
This is ridiculous. I mean, since the 1970s in America, we have known it is public knowledge without question. Even the government admits that the CIA was involved in all sorts of things that were not part of the proper charter, were not allowed by international law, or actually criminal acts of all sorts. And who actually goes to prison, Max? Nobody. So, I mean, come on. That's just ridiculous, first of all. And I'm watching this and laughing, because I took time to study what they discovered during the Church Commission and the Church Committee, the Rockefeller Commission, during the JFK Records Collection Act. I know this stuff inside and out, Max. So, the fact that they're hacking cell phones is funny to me. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's just stuff that we've been telling you for years. So now here it all is, folks. So what are you going to do about it? That's the problem, you know. I mean, this is a criminal organization. It's an absolutely criminal organization that needs to be dismantled. And it's the people's tolerance of it. Like I said before, that's what's allowed this whole situation to unfold and this whole situation to be perpetuated is people's tolerance of it. Like you say, it was back when the church committee put all this information out, when the investigations into JFK. So much stuff has been released over the years, and we know this. We know how corrupt the government is, but people still tolerate it. And now they just put it in your face. And what are people going to do with this now? Are they just going to tolerate this? This is what we've been telling you for years. Now here it all is. So are people going to continue to tolerate it? Are they going to think Trump is going to lead them to safety? Because it doesn't matter what sort of a world Trump is going to lead you into. If you haven't adjusted your moral compass and you choose to continue to tolerate this sort of corruption, then you're just going to end up back where you are, or if not worse. So, you know, and once we change that, once we change our moral compass and refuse to tolerate this type of corruption, we refuse to tolerate wrong behavior, refuse to tolerate evil, then the world has to change around us. It's really that simple. So hopefully this is the opportunity. People need to do that because hopefully now they can see what a farce this all is.
Well, see, I want to share your hope, but let's talk about that moral compass for a minute. Because words like evil, bad, criminal, these are all subjective terms, right? There's lots of different ways to slice that. Okay, Max? I mean, well, I know what you mean by it, but I'm saying to you that, you know what, there's lots of different ways we can play with those words. Is this legal? Is it moral? Is moral and legal always the same thing? No. Is something that is evil necessarily illegal? No. Is something that is, you know, completely illegal and evil always prosecuted? No. There's lots of different holes, lots of different loopholes there. I think about the moral compass. Well, but I think about the moral compass in this way, and people are like, oh God, here he goes. But I have to bring this up to you because this is the singular element to me that is the problem. Somewhere in human nature at the moment, or in the people's nature, in mankind's nature, in the creature that, you know, I know myself to be part of the herd of, okay, in our nature somewhere, there is this problem of seeking to dominate others. Why is that not the part of the moral compass that is being addressed? You know, all of the separations, these people who have a religious belief different than mine, blah, 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 blah. This is what the problem is. Those people that live in another place because they're not part of my national origin, they're not part of my skin color, they're not part of my belief system. All of these different things. It's all about the domination and the implementation of one's own alleged identity upon another, right? If you eliminated that need or that encouragement to dominate, not just with governments, but with individuals directly, if you didn't need to dominate, if you didn't need to get over, if you didn't need to aggressively handle others in one way or another, I mean, think about that for a second. Why is that never seemingly addressed by anybody who's a philosopher, anybody who's looking at the world around us and trying to study the ills of it? This, to me, is the key. If you don't have a need to dominate or to batter another, if that is removed, we don't have these problems, Max. Or am I crazy?
Well, exactly. I mean, it's the manufactured enemies that we often have that are, you know, our governments manufacture enemies for us, and it's the fact that we're kept in a constant state of scarcity also contributes to this as well. I mean, very often people's need to dominate others or their will to dominate others is because they believe themselves to be in a state of scarcity. But if, you know, we're left to our natural state of abundance, I don't think we'd have that need. I mean, sure, you're going to have alpha males that want to compete for a female or whatever, but, you know, if you live living in a world of abundance where you've got access to shelter and you've got access to food, you've got access to everything you need, and there's no need to dominate others to get what you need to survive, then where does that need come from? You know, it would more be, you know, competition for mating purposes or whatever, which is what it always was in tribal situations. So, you know, I think a lot of it is contrived. I think a lot of it comes from the fact that our sexuality is so skewed and the fact that we are kept in a constant state of scarcity. I think that's a lot of what this society has manufactured us to be. and the fact that our government manufactures enemies all the time. It's the fact that we believe some other country wants to come and invade us that it even creates the need for government to protect us against this other country who doesn't want to come and invade us at all. This is just two governments colluding with each other to enslave their people. So, I think a lot of it is a miseducation that we're subject to. We are so disconnected from what we should be in our natural state that this is just a natural byproduct of that. But I think if we weren't kept in a state of scarcity and constant competition, and if we're allowed to live in cooperation, allowed to experience ourselves to the fullest of our potential, we wouldn't have a lot of these problems. I mean, sure, you're going to get psychopaths. You're going to get psychopaths that come into play and want to dominate others because that's what psychopaths do. But, hopefully we could weed these sort of people out with the right education, with the right sort of eyes. We'd see these type of individuals. We'd see what's going on and we'd be able to separate them from the rest of the community or whatever. I don't know. I mean, but there's a better way to do things than what we are. But I think a lot of this competition and this need to dominate others is contrived. I think it's a program that we're running. I really do.
Well, even psychopaths might not even necessarily exist without this forced scarcity, need to dominate, right? And the constant, as you said, fabrication of fabled enemies in order to keep the masses in line. Without that continuous pressure on the mass, you don't even know necessarily that psychopaths like that would emerge as often as they do currently, do you?
Well, exactly. You don't. You get no idea. I mean, that's the thing, people talk about freedom and what it looks like, and the thing is we've never been free. In the history of the human race, we've never been free. I can't find anywhere where this species has actually been free. I can find small modicums of freedom, some species living in the jungle somewhere, some tribe somewhere that doesn't know the rest of humanity exists perhaps. But, on a whole, generally, the human race has never been free. So we don't really know what freedom looks like, but I think we have a great opportunity to create freedom now, to actually move towards a situation where we would be able to actually govern ourselves, given the right circumstances. So, it's going to take a little while to achieve that. We couldn't sort of jump straight into anarchy because, frankly, the world isn't educated enough at the moment to know how to govern themselves. And I'm sure some people are, but mostly people aren't. You'd end up with a power vacuum, but we need something that's going to empower people, some sort of a step away from government that's going to empower people. But we need some sort of managerial situation to guide us back to this point where we can do this, That's the thing with, we've got to be careful about with what we do as well is, speaking out against our governments so much the way we do. We've got to be very careful that we don't just pull our governments down and end up in a state of chaos, which would create a power vacuum for any type of, survival of the fittest. The strongest faction will take over, and they'll do so in a brutal manner, and we don't want that. Right. And there's a lot of good things about civilization we want to keep. I like being able to switch a light on. I like being able to flush a toilet. I like being able to turn a tap on and have water come out. I like being able to drive a car and drive on the roads. I like to be able to use the internet. So there's a lot of things about civilization we don't want to destroy. We just need to find a way of empowering ourselves to create a civilization that continues to empower us and something that is good for people, something that's going to work, something that isn't a people farm, such as what we're living in now.
Well, right. And the other thing is to not encourage the most violent to rise up and take out the structure either, because all that does is allow the most violent to replace the thing that was already destroying us. See, if all you do is encourage the most dominant, the most aggressive, to take hold of the reins of power, all you're going to have is something much worse than what you currently sit in. So there's, it's a self-defeating kind of process when people talk about rising up directly. You know what I'm saying? And utilizing, although, believe it or not, I mean, there are many a day that, you'd find me hard pressed to not want to take up arms in some way or other, because it does get into a high tension kind of situation when you realize, exactly how much, is being trained on yourself and the people that you do care about. It's difficult to not want to do that, but at the same time, this will be a self-defeating mechanism if we were to utilize it in order to try and find a solution. So trying to improve the self is one thing, and trying to encourage others to think outside of this construct of domination and this construct of, well, geez, I don't know, enforced scarcity, which is there to make sure that the system remains propped up and running in proper order, which means that always there has to be someone with nothing in order for someone else to have a great deal more and all of this kind of stuff. I mean, it just seems like we're not ready, really, for the solution, which is directly, like you say, it's just self-determination in real form. You know, you don't require the overlords. You may have some sort of cooperative management, but you don't require the overlords to dictate behavior if there is nothing to, there's nothing to prevent, right? And again, that's why I said the core of it seems to me this need to dominate, this need to competitively overtake and to create a hierarchy based on value and things like this. It gets into a strange area, Max.
Well, it does, but it's our compliance to all of it. I've often said, if we don't comply with it, then it can't happen. It's people's willingness to just give their power away and lock themselves into this system. People's willingness to use mobile phones for everything they do. People's willingness to use credit cards for everything that they buy. I went shopping the other day. I don't use a credit card. When I flew out here to Hawaii, I had to fly out with United Airlines. You've got to pay for your luggage on United Airlines now. They wouldn't let me pay for it with cash. I have to pay for it with a credit card. I said, well, I don't have a credit card. I can't pay for it with a credit card. They made me go to a machine and buy a temporary card, a United Airlines card, and then put money on it to pay for my luggage. They wouldn't let me pay for it with cash. It's people's willingness to do that. Why has everybody let them do this? Why hasn't everyone said, no, I don't want to pay with a credit card. I refuse to pay with a credit card. I'll pay with cash. Why do people use credit cards when they go shopping? Just because it's convenient. Why do they do all their internet stuff on their mobile phones rather than using it on a secure computer? A computer without a microphone and without a camera, unless you hook one up. Why are people so willing to give their power away for the sake of convenience and then complain when they find themselves living in a slavery system? I mean, I spend cash. I don't buy anything with a credit card. People say, I don't believe you that you don't own a credit card. Well, I'm sorry, I don't own a credit card. I have a debit card that I put money in that account if I have to buy something online, like pay for an airline ticket or something. And that's the only time there's ever any money in the account, and it's the only thing I ever buy with the card. If I have to buy something online, if I'm forced to. I don't use a mobile phone for accessing the internet ever. I just don't comply with any of this stuff, It's people's, they just comply with it right along the way, and then they complain when they find themselves in a slavery system. We have this huge data dump of how the CIA can monitor everything you do. It's your willingness to use all this stuff that allows them to do it. Like you say, it's your willingness to go and post on Facebook all the time, put all the data, everything about you on Facebook, who your family is, who your friends are, photos of your families, everything they would have to go through enormous amounts of effort to collect about you. You just put it online for them to all get. You get every conversation you do it all on your mobile phone, so it's all linked up. Your mobile phone's hooked up to your computer, you're hooked up to your Skype, hooked up to this, hooked up to that. It's all hooked up together. It's all correlated. It's all triangulated, all of it. And it's because people use it. I just don't use any of it. I use my computer, and that's all I use.
Well, and I've minimized my exposure to the banks, but I have to say minimized because, in reality, even the debit card, I mean, obviously I don't want details, but the debit card you have most likely is connected to some sort of banking system as well, right? I don't have a credit card.
Well, it has to be.
That's
the thing. Yeah. It's got to be hooked up to a banking system. But the fact is that people don't even usually have debit cards. They have credit cards, and they shop with credit cards. Or they go to the supermarket and buy their groceries with a credit card. I mean, I pay cash for everything. I've got that debit card because sometimes I need to buy an airline ticket or something. And you need to buy something online, but that's it. There's never any money in the account, and I actually never do any shopping with it. So, it's people's willingness to do this is the problem,
No, absolutely. That's the thing. I mean, like I said, I minimize my interaction with the banking system. I don't have technically a bank account to my own name. I don't have any credit cards, anything like that as well. Because here's the thing. You can't complain about them coming to collect pieces of what it is that you're running through their system. If you're constantly utilizing their system, right?
Exactly. But it's people's willingness to comply to all this stuff. There's a film that came out years ago called The Green Beautiful, a French film, and they talk about back in the days of chaos when they all just threw everything away. Imagine if people did that, just threw their television sets away, just stopped using their credit cards, stopped using their mobile phones, went back to the way things were, and started using landlines if they want to call people. Nothing digital. Don't use all this digital currency and digital transactions and all of this sort of stuff. Now, ring people on a telephone if you want to talk to them. Write a letter to them if you want to talk to them. The internet's great, but it's turning into a big shopping mall, and it's giving the powers that believe they be tabs on everybody. And we just have to stop complying with it. I haven't owned a television in years. The only time I ever had a television in my home was when I was married, and my wife owned a television, and she left like 15, 18 years ago or something, 20 years ago. I haven't had a television since that day. I just haven't had one in my home. And I don't use any of this digital stuff. I don't use mobile phones or anything like that. So people have just got to step away from it and realize that, it's the surveillance system themselves that they're putting in their homes. All these new computers like with Cortana and Siri and the Mac operating system and the new Windows 10 and all this sort of stuff. These are surveillance systems, all of them. The new TVs that are 3D capable, these are all surveillance systems that people are putting in their homes. If we just threw all this stuff away, didn't buy any smart appliances, you don't want a smart fridge, you don't want a smart TV, you don't want a smart phone, you don't want anything smart because it's not smart for you to own it. It might be smart, but you're not being smart by owning one because you're giving all your freedom and your privacy away. So, we've got to stop giving away our freedoms for the sake of convenience because it's more convenient for them than it is for us.
Well, and the convenience has caused a distortion too, because, people have entirely built lives in the surrogate reality, which has nothing to do with truly connecting with one another, face to face, person to person, like our natural design is there to do. Okay. So, people get very bent out of shape about their Facebook relationships, right? About their online this and that and the third thing. I mean, people are really living a lot of their emotional lives invested into something that is not tangible outside of the image on a screen or, the sound that comes from a device in their pocket. It's getting a little odd there too, but again, I don't think all is lost.
Well, no, I mean, the problem with Facebook and that is it's removing human interaction. Like people are taking the text way too seriously. Now, someone can say something in text, some little flippant remark, and you take it absolutely as gospel, word for word, as if they meant every word of it. You don't get the facial expression, you don't get the tone of voice, you don't get the mood of the person that is delivering the message to you. And people take text way too seriously. It removes all the emotional input and all the human input into the conversation. And people are losing their social skills because of it. And you're finding people are developing problems with each other when if they were to have the conversation in the real world, there wouldn't be a problem with each other at all because there are certain inflections in the voice and certain looks in the eye where you can see exactly what the person meant. And you don't get that from text chat. I've really pulled myself right away from text chat. I'm trying to just get right away from it altogether, both on YouTube and on Facebook. I just think it's counterproductive, it's anti-human, and it's really destroying people's relationships with each other. It's quite detrimental. Even in the Philippines, you talk to families in the Philippines, and they're very, very concerned at what texting and Facebook and this whole mobile phone world is doing to their children, because they're finding their children are developing problems with other children, where in the real world, if they're interacting in the real world, these problems wouldn't exist. People are developing real issues from being unfriended on Facebook or whatever because they're taking people's texts the wrong way. And as I said, if they were actually talking to the kids, it wouldn't really be a problem. It's just because you're reading it in text. So I think that's something people need to look at and take into account as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. And, but it is a different world that we live in for sure because of all these devices. And I still say, it's just a tool like anything else. All of these things can lead us away in one way or another from dealing with what is right in front of us. Now, you're on the move in a lot of cases, right? But a lot of people that are listening to this show or that interact with me or whatever, they're stuck in one place. And in a lot of cases, they're stuck in the online world, and they don't even know the people that are 30 feet away from where they're sitting as they're listening to this show. You know what I mean? The people that are actually right next door to them, they don't know them. If they do know them by name, they know nothing about them. There's no sense of community. Isn't that sort of connectivity by proximity part of the equation that's also been lost?
Oh, absolutely. And it's extremely important that people get that back. That's something that I've been pushing for years and years, ever since the first radio show that I ever did, the need to build strong ties in your community. I've often said, whatever you're doing, if you're baking biscuits or baking bread or something, do some extra and go to meet the people next door. Go find if there's something you can do for these people. Just get to know them. Go watch a ball game with them or something, even if you don't like ball games. Just do something that they like so you get to communicate with them on their level and become their friends. Because if you've got a strong community, you can stand up against the system. You need these strong communal ties. You need to have good rapport with your neighbours. It's got to the point now, if the police come and take someone out in some house, all the neighbours get out and ogle at it and they go, oh, I wonder what he did wrong, But if they actually knew the person, they might find out that he actually hadn't done anything wrong, and that you're all informed that he knew something like this was going to happen because the guy's an activist. He's been speaking out against the government, and maybe, the whole community could get out there and stand by the man and protect the guy and ask the police what they were doing, why they were coming to victimise someone of their friends, You'd have that support from people around you if you get to know them. So you've got to get to know them. I mean, this is what I've been trying to do with Full Circle Project. Just reach out to your community, create some sort of an action group in your community, and get to know your neighbours. It's so important that people do this. The whole divisive nature of this system, the whole divide and conquer strategy, it's never been more apparent than what we see in local neighbourhoods. It seems that the closer you pack people together, the less they want to know each other. You start encroaching in on people's personal space, and they just don't want to know their neighbours. You go out in the country, the people living half a mile from each other, and they all know each other. All the people in the local valley will all know each other. They know what everybody's up to. They know what everybody's business is. They know the names of the kids. You get people in an apartment block, you have 50 families living in one block, and nobody knows each other. It's really bizarre that's what cities seem to do. And the closer you pack people together, the more divided they become. And I think it's really important that people break down these barriers and build these strong ties in their community, because strong communities can stand up against anything. The government has nowhere to go against a strong communal response. I've been saying this for years.
Well, right. And a lot of those radio shows that you referenced, you can find at the Crow House, right? Wouldn't mind if you told people about that real quick. And then I want to kind of get the thoughts from Daniel and Sherry as we go forward. But tell people about what's over at the Crow House.
Yeah, well, there's a lot at the Crow House. I've got probably 1,600 pages there now, thecrowhouse.com. That's been my website for 9 or 10 years now. You got 8 or 9 years of radio show archives on there, hundreds and hundreds of hours of me talking, folks. You can listen to me drone on forever. And I've got 6 films over there that I've made as well. Everything's for free. There's no advertising. There's no subscriber section. It's just a database and a portal, a resource hub, really. So there's a lot of links and there's a lot of pages. There's hundreds of articles there linked to in the article archives. So, yeah, make use of it, get it out to people, share the information. It's all stuff that we need to know. I haven't put anything on there that is kind of flippant. I mean, everything on there is need to know information. So I don't just put anything on there in the headlines, and don't just put any article on there. It's all important stuff. So yeah, thecrowhouse.com. You'll find out everything about me there.
Well, absolutely. And, I want to get, first of all, Sherry's thoughts on what we've discussed so far. I know I've kind of dominated this whole time period here, but, what do you think about what I've been discussing with Max, Sherry?
I think that Max, as always, has a lot of valid points. You both seem to, speak the same truth, as they say. But I think that one of the things that I wanted to throw in from a woman's perspective, I suppose, is that I've gotten a lot of comments in the last couple of days about me not supporting the Woman's Day. And I guess, to me, I'm not going to support anything that supports separation. And I don't care if you're a man, woman, yellow, green, purple, blue, whatever it is that somebody is telling you gives you that separation and causes you to either put your energy for or against, you are still feeding the powers that be. And so, to me, it's exactly what you're saying, Max, that we need to wake up, but we need to wake up to the games that they've been playing for such a long time that we think those games are giving us freedom when in reality they are keeping us trapped.
Yeah, there you go with the politics of identity, Max, right away. I mean, I was amazed just over the past couple of days that LGBT has now become LGBTQ. I don't know how many letters are on it now. All of these different subdivisions, and you need to get with this group and that group, and based on what your genitals are, based on what race you are, based on what this persuasion you are. I mean, it's one of those things, right? I mean, this is exactly what we were talking about in the very beginning of our discussion, don't you think?
Well, yeah, again, it's just divide and conquer. I mean, I get really tired of this, women's days, men's groups, women's groups. I get very tired of people saying the problem is that we're living in a patriarchal society. I don't think it's patriarchal at all. Patriarchal implies paternal. There's nothing father-like about this society at all. There's nothing paternal about this at all. It's psychopathic. And really, when you look at it, I don't think it's patriarchal at all. Look at Queen Beatrice, look at Queen Elizabeth, look at Hillary Clinton, and look at Madeleine Albright, look at Angela Merkel. I mean, Julie Gillard. There's so many people, so many women who are just as bad as many of the men that are involved in this. When you look at the people farm that's being run, I mean, there's women that are just as rampant in it as men. So I think the whole concept of it being patriarchal versus matriarchal is simply a distraction. I think it's psychopathic, and it's irrespective of what your gender is. I think there's been so much work done to divide the sexes, and I think this is just continuing into it. And I totally support what Sherry was saying then about not wanting to support a Women's Day. It should be a People's Day. Real People's Day, genuine People's Day, non-psychopath day, a respect day where all genders respect each other. I mean, what's the problem with that? That's the direction I think we should be going. We've got to get out of this distraction, this whole division play. Anything that separates us, it's ridiculous, I mean, sure, we're our own selves, we're our own individuals, and sure, we are separate to everybody else in as much as we are ourselves, and we're completely unique. We're sui generis in being ourselves. But at the same time, we're all in this together, and we all have equal value, regardless of our gender. So, yeah, I think it's counterproductive to even support these sorts of things, and to even name this system as being patriarchal. I think it's counterproductive.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. And, on that note, I want to kind of go over to Daniel because, these subdivisions, yes, indeed, we are all individuals, but we are not divided. These things are not mutually exclusive. Yes, I am an individual unto myself, but I'm also part of this. We are all here together. It seems, anyway, unless I am under some delusion, we do appear to be all here in the same space and time at this moment, which is now gone. Of course, all you ever have is the moment. But, Daniel, your thoughts on the whole discussion and this subject directly.
Hey, Max, man. Nice to finally talk to you.
Nice to hook up with you, Daniel.
Yeah, I told Sherry before I came on tonight I was going to geek out because, you're one of my heroes, man. When I started to wake up around 2008 or so, I came across you on the Internet, and I'm not trying to kiss your ass or anything, but give me a little bit of brevity because it's sincere. Listening to some of your philosophies and points of view as I started to go through my awakening process absolutely directed the course of my entire life for years. And I want to thank you for that because I know that that's applicable to a lot of people who have listened to you, as they start to wake up to all this illusion around us. And that being said, I think where I'd like to logically kind of go in the next hour is you did a documentary in 2011 called The Awakening, where you you kind of started off talking about Christ consciousness. And in order for us to really change what we're perceiving outside of us is to go within and access, the type of consciousness that Max Planck talks about with the idea of a unified field and quantum theory. Is that something that you still advocate, or that you get an opportunity to speak about a lot? Is going within to change the without?
Absolutely. Look, I touch on this in virtually all of my talks. Yeah. It's very important that people do that, and it's very important that people look deep enough within to see the shadow as well, I believe, because it's realizing that shadow exists within you, which allows you to see what other people are capable of and allows you to understand your enemy a little bit more. But understanding that you're speaking an emotional language all the time and understanding what you're projecting into the field all the time, it's incredibly important for people to know this, I think. And that's what that film was mainly about. The problem is, there's so much new age deception out there. People go and they do all this inner work, and then they lock themselves into this little bubble of spiritual narcissism. They forget to see that there's only really one self, and you're never going to improve the plight of the self by ignoring the world around you. Once you gain these spiritual understandings, you need to apply them to the physical world that you live in. I mean, you're in this 3D reality for a reason, and you need to apply yourself to it. If we were to do that, we could change things really, really quickly. And that's what I was saying. I often say, if we change our moral compass, and you can debate what your moral compass is, but ultimately it's doing the right thing. You know what's good, you know what's bad, you know what's right, you know what's wrong. We all do. And it's doing what is right. That is, to me, where your moral compass should be pointed. And if you do this and you refuse to tolerate anything wrong, then we can change the world in a day. We really could. I mean, if we refuse to tolerate all of this bad stuff happening in the world around us and we applied ourselves to the world around us, then and did the right thing in all that we did, if everybody did this, then the system would have to change around us. We wouldn't need to construct anything new at all. The system would have to remold itself around us. So, yeah, it's extremely important that people do the inner work. And doing that inner work, when you can apply it to the world and live your life in this way, you'll find that your life just unfolds. I mean, mine has. My life has just been this series of synchronicities for years because I've managed to keep myself in that state. And hey, I lose it sometimes. I get angry. We all get angry, we all lash out. But even when you get angry, I think it's important for people to express that. Don't bottle it up, because if you bottle it up, it'll come out later in some other way that you didn't expect. It'll come out as a sickness within yourself, or you'll find yourself harvesting energy off someone, some little dark corner of you will come to light at some point, and you'll be niggling at someone and you don't really know why. And it's because you haven't expressed yourself. You haven't allowed your emotions to flow the way they should. I think we're very, very cowed in how we express our emotions. We're taught that we shouldn't express our emotions. We're taught that we should be kind of living our lives on Prozac almost, And I think it's important that we step above that and live our lives in what we should be and express our emotions the way we should. But I think it's very important that we understand we're speaking this emotional language all the time. And thank you so much for the compliments as well, Daniel. It's wonderful to hear that the show's actually helped people and put a little bit of positive guidance in their life. I hope I don't mess you up, because I don't get things right all the time. I mean, on the show.
Well, listening to you absolutely destroyed my life. But enlightenment is a destructive process. When you start to think about these concepts and others aren't ready to go down that path with you. But I think that what was most important is the tone and vibration in which you transmit the information, so that people don't freak out and lose their shit, thinking that there's no hope and that we're all doomed. That there is workable solutions, and it's beginning with the person in the mirror and doing no harm to others. But a question that I would ask you is, what would you think of the nature of self-defense in areas where someone is trying to impose their belief system on you, or psychic vampirism or anything like that? What's your position on self-defense versus trying to force things to control others?
Look, it depends on the type of attack that you're undergoing. I mean, I don't believe in violence, but I believe in counter-violence. If someone was physically attacking you, I absolutely recommend people defend themselves to the point of repelling the attacker, and whatever it takes to repel the attacker. But I mean, then don't go on the attack and become the aggressor. That's not what it's all about. As far as psychic attack goes, I mean, you just got to try to shield yourself and not buy into it. it's okay for other people to attack you. What it's really about is energy harvesting. It's whether you choose to give them that energy. And there's little psychic hooks that get in there. I do it. I fall prey to it all the time. Psychic attacks, psychic vampirism all the time. And, it's just something that you've got to be aware of. But the more you're aware of it, the more you just don't buy into it. I think that is the best defense, is to just not give it any energy.
Well, that's right, Max. And, we're up against the break here, so we're going to go into the next hour here on the Ochelli Effect. Max Igan, Daniel Lewis Crumpton, and, yes, indeed, Sherry Wisdom is with me as well on a Wednesday night. And I guarantee this conversation is going to get a little deeper. Stay tuned to American Freedom Radio. We'll be right back. Always nice to kick off the second hour with a band from Brooklyn called Biohazard. Anyway, this is the Ochelli Effect, broadcast live on American Freedom Radio at AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Max Igan is with me, and this has been an interesting conversation so far. I assure you, if you missed it, tune into the first hour on the archive. Daniel Lewis Crumpton is also with us, and my co-host on Wednesdays, the creator of the 3-day rule, Sherry Wisdom.
I was waiting for that.
I knew you were waiting for that.
I feel neglected. If you don't add in a few things during every show, then I feel like you're not really caring for me.
Oh, I see. You see, this is fun for everybody. I have to make sure to placate and take very good care of Sherry's feminine ego, because without it, she will get very upset, and she may in fact throw a tantrum and start cursing on the show and stuff, which I always ask her kindly not to do. Right?
Yeah, okay, never mind. Yeah. I don't do that anymore.
We gotta have fun too, right, Daniel?
If you ain't having fun, you ain't doing it right.
There you go. And that is what she said. Anyway, Max. Bada bing. We were, there's an inside joke for you. But Max, you were actually playing around with something during the break there, and I was enjoying the bit of music that you were providing. I do want to get back into the conversation because we were sort of rudely cut off because of the break. And Daniel had a train of thought going there that I think was, really important. So if you don't mind, I'd like to, rejoin with that particular area of discussion. Daniel?
Man, you know what I do during the break. I don't even remember. No.
I know.
Something I did want to ask you. Today, Ray Kurzweil, or at least I saw the article today, Ray Kurzweil has brought the date for singularity from like 2045 to 2029. And, where you guys were discussing how, anyway, to me, it looks like we're going into a split society. I mean, when you talk about singularity and walking into a matrix, man, people are going to willingly do that. So it's going to happen. There are going to be masses of people that will jack into a literal matrix. I mean, and they'll buy it at their wireless carrier store. It's going to happen. So to me, I kind of see like a split society. Those of us who realize there's a 3-dimensional or 4-dimensional world outside of our screen. But what do you got to say about Ray Kurzweil upping the date for singularity?
Look, it doesn't surprise me. Technology's been making leaps and bounds in progress, but people think that it's going to be up to the choice of who wants to jack in and who doesn't. You've got to really look beyond that. What if the people aren't really being given a choice? If it's going to be a singularity, then it needs to encompass all. Like Ray Kurzweil said in Transcendent Man, soon the rocks, the trees, everything will become intelligent. So how's this going to happen? Well, it's all going to be infused with nanotechnology. And that's what's happening. I mean, there's nanotech in the food. There's nanotech in popular dressings, sauces, and cereals that have been discovered in Australia, so you can be guaranteed it's happening in America and other countries as well. So this is how it's happening. If there's going to be a singularity and we're going to move towards this transhumanist agenda, it's going to be modifying the human being from the inside out without their knowledge, and that's essentially what's going on. I mean, if you look at Morgellons syndrome, this is kind of like the canary in the coal mine that shows that some people are rejecting the technology, but most people aren't. you can grow Morgellons-like fibers from anybody. You can take probably a blood sample from yourself, put it in a petri dish, and grow Morgellons-type fibers from it. So this technology is in everybody, and I think that's how it's going to be done. Ray Kurzweil has an incredible fear of death. He just does. I mean, most of these scientists that are working towards this, they're just mad scientists. They really are. And when you look at what the whole concept is and what they want to do, Ray Kurzweil even said in Transcendent Man that they want to send artificial intelligence, nanotechnology infused with artificial intelligence out into the cosmos to basically harness everything else they can find. This is the Borg. This is the creation of the Borg. How audacious would you have to be? How big would your ego have to be so audacious that you would send nanotechnology out into space to harness anything it finds, regardless of what it is? You don't know what life is out there. You don't know what other animals or creatures you're going to find, but you have taken it upon yourself to not only find them, but to invade them from, the inside out through nanotechnology and harness their being to make it part of yours. This is very, very scary stuff, and this is what Ray Kurzweil's dream is. This is what the whole transhumanist dream is. This is what the singularity is. The singularity itself, he may be looking towards the singularity on Earth by 2029, but, you've got to wonder how he would do that. I would say it would only be achieved by nanotechnology. Once this nanotech is in place and the smart grid's in place, and they can do it all wirelessly, they can affect people wirelessly, they can affect nanotech wirelessly. They've already been able to switch the genes on and off in rats using nanotechnology and wireless technology, switch it off with radio waves. So, they've been experimenting with this sort of stuff for years. So they may achieve some sort of a singularity on Earth by that date, but I doubt that they will achieve the ultimate singularity that they're after, because the ultimate singularity that they want is what Ray Kurzweil describes as the universe waking up and becoming intelligent, as if it wasn't already. So, I think we've got a long way to go to get to that point, but perhaps some sort of a singularity on Earth, they may be well on the way to achieving it through nanotechnology. It just depends on how far they've gotten with it, how much it's infused into people, and how widely spread it is around the world.
See, and then when you put the CRISPR technology into context with this, what does that say? That just looks to me like the ground troops before the real invasion, right? The manipulation of the genetic switches through stuff like that, which seems to me for benevolent purposes. Oh, imagine if we could factor out the diseases. Oh, sure. Just like the introduction of all these other interesting aspects into the human construct through the pharmaceutical industry, all of it becoming extremely common, changing the brain chemistry and literally changing the entire chemistry, so that it's just a more conducive environment, I think, for the nanotechnology that is not new, really, has been developed, probably at an accelerated rate recently, but it's not new, is it?
No, it's not new. I think the vaccines and everything they give people, as well as setting up certain genetic environments for this nanotechnology to, perform its functions as well. A lot of people look at it and they think, well, transhumanism, enhanced humans, this is going to be great. It'd be great to be enhanced, but what is enhancement? What does enhancement actually mean? Enhancement may be good for one group, but may be very bad for another group. If you look at cattle, what about enhanced cattle? What about people who are bred so that they cannot breed, so that they can work long hours, so that they're very docile and very unquestioning? All this is enhanced, improved. So, what constitutes enhancement and improvement for one section of society may in fact be absolute degradation for another section of society. So you really got to look at how they're going with it and which part you're in. Are you part of the ruling elite who are actually running this? Do you think that the enhancements that you're going to get are going to be beneficial to you? We're already seeing a massive drop in births and stuff. People are having a very hard time having kids. We're seeing things like ectogenesis chambers developing. We're seeing things like artificial sperm being developed in the lab from stem cells. They've just managed to create artificial eggs as well from stem cells. Just a few weeks ago, they developed that technology. So now they can weed out parents altogether. They don't need parents. They don't need people who can breed. And they're doing this with GM food. After 3 generations of eating GM food, any species they've tested it can't breed after 3 generations. So we end up with a human race who is unable to breed, who is genetically enhanced and enhanced with nanotechnology to be whatever the ruling elite want them to be. And we end up with kids being born in ectogenesis chambers from artificial sperm and artificial eggs. So this is the direction that we're going. This is the transhumanist society that they're working towards. And that, I would suggest, is the type of singularity that they're working towards as well. That's the type of singularity that Ray Kurzweil is talking about. I mean, it's not going to be the whole world. You won't get this in the third world too quickly. It'll take a little while to develop the third world to the point that they will accept this type of technology. But in the first world, you'll probably see this sort of stuff coming into play within the next 20 or 30 years.
Yep. Now, I don't know if you're a movie buff or not, but recently I went to go see Logan. And I don't want to spoil it, for anybody, but one of the main plot points of it is obviously it takes place in the year 2029, which I find ironic that Ray Kurzweil said that today. But in the whole X-Men mythos, there hasn't been a mutant born in 20 years. And there's kind of most people think it's a throwaway scene where the main character, Logan's walking through a cornfield. A farmer is, organically growing corn. And off in the distance, you see these giant mechanized machines just harvesting corn. And Logan asked a question. He says, well, who's going to eat this crap? And they said, no, they don't. They drink it in their sugary drinks and everything. And, later in the film, it's revealed that it was through food and drink that they suppressed human evolution, the way that it was intended by the universe. They suppressed it through what we take into our bodies to alter us on a genetic level. And everybody, I kind of looked around in the theater to see if anybody else got it, that's actually kind of what's happening. But I didn't see anybody. It's just me. So, do you think that maybe that there's some type of conscious, because since 2012 especially, a lot of people have been waking up, becoming more conscious to all of this stuff. Do you think that they're also trying to suppress that amongst us, like people here sitting on the call? I mean, we're more aware than your average American anyway. Do you think that that they're afraid of people like us who are speaking this type of truth to other people, so maybe they could wake up and try to suppress that?
Well, before you answer, Max, let me abruptly throw in the random devil's advocate statement here. Is it possible, because I've heard this argument made by some people that think that this is a great idea, that all of this tampering with the human genome and enhancement is a great thing. I've heard them say that maybe this is part of the true evolution that we're supposed to get to based on the gift of our intelligence, right? That this is the direction we're supposed to be going in. I don't buy this particular thought process, but I'm just saying there are people that actually believe that this is part of what should be because we're capable of it, therefore we should be doing it. I mean, what do you think of that? And also, answering what Daniel just said.
Well, look, I think that people who think that, I mean, sure, there is that possibility, and there's nothing wrong with technology. The only thing that's wrong with technology is who controls the technology, who's in control of it. And when you look at the state of the world and look at the position that we're in, well, the people that are in control of this technology do not have your best interests at heart, and that's a danger. I mean, sure, enhancement might be great, but when that enhancement, when what you have become is being controlled or has the possibility of being controlled by somebody else, and that's a very dangerous thing for people to be giving their freedom away to. I really don't think that people should be doing that. I think it's something they should consider. If you were in control of the technology, it might be great, but you're not in control of the technology. That's the problem. And can you just what was your question again, Daniel? Just briefly.
Do you think that there's whereas the people who are have the keys to the control system are trying to, it seems like a mad rush to their own type of singularity, that there might also be an evolution happening in another part of humanity that they're trying to suppress?
Well, yeah, I do. I think that there is a huge wakefulness that's happening, and they are going all out to suppress that. That's why they need to control us as quickly as they can. Like we have a real opportunity here for freedom, and they want to suppress that. I think that a lot of what we're being offered is technology that we already have, like inner technology that we already have. And I think that that's why it's so we take to it like a fish to water. You know, they give us this instant communication and all this sort of stuff, and it seems so natural to us because I think we can already do it. And they're attempting to replace that with this digital clunky version that they can control. And I think it's important that people look at that. I mean, you know, we don't need to have all of this digital stuff controlling us. If we're allowed to be all that we can be, if we weren't being controlled by our food, and like you say, I mean, all the stuff that they're putting in our food is what is controlling us and what is controlling our evolution. They're doing that already, and they've been doing it through the GM food. Like I said, they're rendering us to a point where we will not be able to breed. They're putting fluoride and all sorts of stuff in there to lower our brain function and inhibit our cognitive function. So, yeah, absolutely, they're manipulating our evolution, and they're trying to take it in a direction that they can control. And I think we need to look at it and step away from it. And that's what I'm saying about it. It's our willingness to buy into all this technology and take all of this stuff for granted all the time just for the sake of convenience. And we're not really looking at what it's doing to us. We're not looking at the type of environment we're allowing ourselves to be immersed in and how that environment is affecting us, you know, like electromagnetically, how we're being affected by this electromagnetic soup we're swimming in. And when you add the nanotech to it, and you look at the experiments they've done with nanotech, like I said, they can get nanotech and inject it into rats, and then they can shoot radio frequencies at the rats and have the nanotech switch the genes on and off in the rats. So how are they being able to switch our genes on and off? What are they doing to us with all these backscatter units that they use at the airports to scan you, and all the mobile phone technology, all the smart grid? We're just immersed in this radiation all the time, and we've got nanotech in us, which is programmable nanotech. So where are we going, and how are we being manipulated?
Do you think we can outrun them?
Yeah, I do, with awareness. If people can be aware of it, I think we can. I think the nanotech can't even survive under the right circumstances. I mean, if we can find the right frequencies to get it out of our bodies, I think we can. I think that nothing is set in stone. I don't think that it has to go forward in the direction that it is going. I think more people become aware of it, the better, and the more people step away from technology, the better. You know, I mean, sure, we can still use some technologies, but step away from the stuff that they are forcing you to have. You know, if they're forcing you to do something, you don't want to have it. Like I said recently, I went on to United Airlines. They're forcing you to use credit cards. They're forcing you to take your mobile phone, your iPads on the planes as well, because they're removing the entertainment system from the plane. So if you want entertainment on the plane, you've got to go and hook up your device wirelessly to their entertainment unit. So, you know, it's people's willingness to do all this sort of stuff, which is allowing it to come online. People's willingness to use wireless technology all the time. I don't have any wireless technology at all at home. Even here in Hawaii, I've got a cable hooked up to my laptop here. I don't have any wireless signal anywhere. I don't use wireless mouses or wireless keyboards. Or I don't use mobile phones. I just stay right away from all that sort of stuff. I mean, I'm swimming in it anyway. It's all around us. I mean, you can go to any building and find 150 different wireless signals around you. But, you know, it's people's willingness to do that. Hopefully more and more people wake up to it. And they'll unplug from the wireless, or they'll plug back into non-wireless and get rid of all of this wireless technology around them. You know, it's having a huge effect on us. But I think it's all connected, and I think it's a really important time at the moment, which is why they're keeping us so distracted with all this identity politics and all this rubbish and bullshit that they're feeding us, keeping everybody fighting about anything they can get you to fight about, any belief system they can get you to adopt, just not paying attention to what's going on around us. But ultimately, everything's still happening. It's still rolling out. In fact, it's escalated even more since Trump's taken office. So
I think a lot of people
look around them.
I think a lot of people are feeling like they're being sucked into the event horizon of the black hole of 24-hour connectivity to the collective internet. And, you know, here recently, I know it's pissed Chuck off and a few other people. I've been rationing the amount of time that I spend online and exploring the world away from the monitor. And, of course, I threw my cell phone away a while back and have never felt more enriched and freer than when I was a kid. You know, not having dings constantly go off in your pocket to distract you from, oh, look, a butterfly in the real world. You know, look, a neighbor. You know, look, a nature trail. You know, so I guess I would say anything in moderation.
Yeah. Go outside, folks. You remember that, don't you? Outside. Go and have a look. It's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I spent part of my time, arguing with a 2-year-old. So, there's a different mindset over here.
Well, Max,
I'm not connected all the time.
Max, man, I'm interested to know, because, I've followed your work for a long time, but I'm interested to know what was the process for you in waking up, and what kind of people did you read whenever you started to become more aware and get into, what most people call Christ consciousness, or, being in Zen? What made you get to that place? What were some of your influences?
Look, I woke up when I was really, really young. I woke up when I was 4 to the fact that something was terribly wrong with the world. When I found out that my parents had to buy land, I couldn't understand the concept of buying land when I was 4. And I thought I'd been born into the wrong world. I was having very, very in-depth conversations with my teddy bear at 4 years old, explaining to him that I'd been born onto the wrong planet. I wasn't supposed to be here. I was supposed to be somewhere else. And I just kind of watched the world in amazement from that point and spent most of my life trying to figure out why we were so messed up, how we got here. What kept me sane through my childhood was Frank Zappa. Listening to Frank Zappa music, because he saw the world was completely messed up as well. And I thought, wow, it's not just me. And researching ancient history and stuff like that, I mean, that's what I spent most of my life doing. And I lived as a musician on the outside of society for most of my life and just researched ancient history. I read some sort of spiritual books, but could never really get a grasp on most of it. And I had a huge meditation epiphany in 2008. Which started me on the process of making the films and doing the radio shows. So it was, I was always aware that something was terribly wrong, and I was always researching the whole New World Order and, the UFO scene and everything that you could find, any conspiracy I could find.
What drew you to meditation?
I was looking into it. You what?
What drew you into meditation?
Well, just my friends, really, just talking to people and realizing that this was a way to do things. And, I read a couple of little Rob Sang Ramper books and stuff when I was young, but never really applied it to myself. But a lot of my friends were sort of meditating, a lot of New Age people that I knew, and so I sort of started and developed my own way of doing it. And I just had this incredible epiphany in 2008. And that's when I got all the information that I put in The Awakening, when I realized that we're speaking this emotional language. And I realized what all the research I've been doing all my life had been for, and I sort of realized what my path was. And I just kind of had that meditation. I started, applying my emotional understandings to the world around me, and it started mirroring things back to me. And so I stepped onto that path, and I've just been on that path ever since. I don't really know what led me to it. I mean, a lot of what led me to it was different crises in my life that I always saw as being really, really terrible times, but ended up being times of great opportunity. And I think all crisis is a time of great opportunity. And when I had all the information that I needed to step onto this path that I'm now on, the universe took everything away from me that would prevent me from stepping on this path. And it kind of pushed me onto it without any choice of my own. I mean, I never chose to do what I'm doing.
Didn't you fight it like hell?
I didn't. I just kind of went with the flow. I had no choice, really. I mean, I had nowhere else to turn except for my research. It was the only thing that was keeping me sane at the time. I'd basically lost everything at the time. I'd lost all my music and all sorts of stuff. It had been quite a terrible emotional trauma I'd gone through in my life. And the universe had just basically projected me and propelled me onto this path. And all I had to do was to go with it. And that's the only choice I had. And so I just immersed myself into that. And now I'm just kind of doing what I'm doing. And since I stepped onto this path, it's all been synchronistic. It's all worked. And I realized that all the path that I'd been on prior to that point was all giving me the information that I needed to do what I'm doing now. But if I hadn't have been in that little musical bubble, I never would have had the opportunity to gather all of that knowledge. So it kind of all worked out the way it was supposed to. I think that's what's wrong with people, is they're constantly looking for their path rather than allowing the universe to just propel them onto it, and realizing that all the information they're gathering along the way is all necessary. And once they've gathered what they need, it's just gonna happen for them. It's just up to them to recognize it. And when this crisis happens in their life, to realize that it's actually an opportunity. And most crisis is opportunity. That's the way we get to where we're going, through massive change and upheaval. Birth is always a painful process, and that's kind of what it was for me. It was kind of like a rebirth, or a real birth, of finding what my true path was. And it was painful, but it was a good process. Now when I look back on it, I'm grateful for all of it. I'm grateful for all the bad stuff that ever happened to me in my life, because it led me to right where I am now and gave me the knowledge that I've got now and the understandings that I've got now. And I wouldn't be able to do what I do without those things. So it's all been a blessing, really.
Well, pain, crisis, and pressure are really just preparation for a later piece of the path. I mean, this is something that a lot of people fail to recognize. They seem to think that, you know, it is the whole of the path when it's merely just one of the steps that needs to be taken sometimes. I mean, there's a great many things that probably would have destroyed me personally had I not endured much worse things earlier on. Let's just say, right? And even the fact that I endured something worse, I mean, it's hard to put these things in an order to say that one is greater than the other, but when I look back on it now, it's a little different than when you're immersed in it. And, you know, like you said, birth is a process which is painful, but, you know, if you ask somebody who's being birthed, if you could, you know, do you recognize that this is just part of the process for what's going to come later? It's difficult for most people to recognize. Wouldn't you agree, Max?
Oh, yeah, for sure, you know, but when you look back on the most painful times of your life, it doesn't matter now, does it? It didn't affect you now. It doesn't affect you now. All those things that you thought were so bad at the time, they don't really mean much to you now. So, you know, if you can maintain that focus when all these bad things are happening and realize, oh, here's another opportunity. I wonder what this is going to provide for me. You know, I'm stepping off the path that I thought I was on. I wonder what the universe has in store for me now. And it's all just part of the ride. It's all just part of the ride. No stake in the outcome. You know, I have no stake in the outcome of anything that I do. And that has been hugely liberating to have that attitude. You know, I don't ever place any real value on where my path is going to go. I just let it unfold before me. And if it goes in a different direction to what I thought it was going to go, well, that's okay. I can deal with that. Here's something else that I didn't expect. So maybe it's something better than what I expected. Maybe it's something worse. But whatever it is, it's a learning curve. And, you know, I've learned to appreciate that the only thing that is consistent in life is change. And nothing is ever what we expect it to be. So, yeah, I just say bring it on, let it all unfold. I'm happy with whatever the outcome is.
You know, just have a good time while you're here. It's an experience. You know, chill out. Are you a fan of Douglas Adams? Because I think the whole "don't panic" is brilliant. You know, that this is just an experience that we're manifesting. So it's, you know, acknowledge it.
Well, yeah,
have a good time while you're here.
Yeah, we'll have a good time, but, you know, don't have a good time at the expense of others. But, you know, do enjoy it. I mean, it's all part of the experience, and it's all really what you do with the information that comes to you. You know, you don't have to attach negative outcomes to it all. Even if something bad happens, there's usually some sort of a silver lining in there somewhere if you're prepared to see it. Just remove stake in the outcome and realize it's about what you do with the information. That's the important part.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who are kind of who hear the calling to a different path than the status quo reality, I think that what a lot of people try to do that prolongs, I guess, the dark night of the soul is they try to keep their foot on plan A and plan B, you know, and if you have a plan B, plan A it doesn't even count, you know, and it's, I know when I first started out on my spiritual awakening or journey, the idea of following synchronicity or following your intuition and the universe will provide, when you first start to see synchronicity, you believe it, and then it kind of goes away, and then you question your own sanity, and then you get it back again, and it kind of goes back and forth. Is there ever a time on the spiritual path where you go, okay, look, no matter what happens, no matter where my intuition or the synchronicity takes me, the universe is going to provide no matter what, and I could just not freak out? Do you ever reach that point?
Look, yeah, I have. You know, you get to that point, and I mean, I'm kind of always at that point. I don't really worry about what's around the corner. I get down to the point where I got $10 left in my name, and I just don't stress about it. I just let things unfold. I've reached that point long ago where I've stopped worrying about the future. I've stopped being concerned with what the universe has planned for me and just let it unfold. Mm-hmm. And I don't expect anything. I don't expect to be looked after. Now, if I do something for someone, I don't expect it to come back to me. As soon as I expect it to, it doesn't. You know, so I just do things. I just listen to my intuition, and I just do what my intuition tells me to do, and I just accept what the universe has for me. And I have no stake in the outcome. It doesn't matter where I end up. I've lived in a storm drain when I was a kid. I've been homeless. I've been in every different level of society that you can think of, just about. So, I've experienced a lot of stuff, and I'm kind of just used to it now. I can sleep anywhere. I can live anywhere. I have very, very few needs. If I ever have money, I don't really know what to spend it on, except food, and that's about it. I mean, there's nothing that I want. There's nothing that I want to buy. There's nothing that I particularly want to do. I'd like to see the human race free. I'd like to see mankind taking responsibility for itself. I'd like to see emancipation from this slavery system. But that's about my only goals in life, So, to me, it's about the path. It's about the journey. And I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know where I'm going to be next week. So, having no stake in the outcome, I think, is hugely important for people. I often say if you throw yourself to the wind, you can ride it. And I think it's important that people see that and attempt to do that, but do it without any expectations, Sometimes the world is very, very different to what you think it's going to be. And, don't cast yourself to the wind thinking you're going to be looked after. Just see what happens, because you might find you are looked after. You might find you have to look after yourself, but you might find that the world is completely different to what you thought it was. It might give you a new lease on life. It might give you a new understanding with people. It might help you get along with people if you kind of remove yourself from the social position that you've constructed for yourself and, all of the illusions that come with that, and just realize that you're part of the flow with everybody else, and just get into that flow. I think if we can all do that, if people can do that, it can change their lives. I mean, it has with me, and hopefully it has with other people who've done it. I mean, I know people who've just completely disconnected, thrown themselves to the wind, and their whole life has just unfolded before them. So, I think it's important that people live their lives and realize that it's about them, and it's about living their life as art, and realizing it's not about their social position or the plans that society has for them. We have to disconnect ourselves from this society, keep what we want from it, keep one foot in the fiction, keep the technology you want to use or whatever, but live your life. Don't think it's about all this stuff that this system says you have to do, buying houses and buying all this stuff and having the right suit and hanging out in the right crowd. I mean, all this stuff's ridiculous. It's about us finding ourselves. And, all of this that we're seeing now, I mean, this is a huge opportunity for the human race to do this. And hopefully they're going to see it. I mean, like I keep saying to people, this is just such a farce, this whole political arena globally, not just in the US, but in England, everywhere, the whole political arena. The wheels are falling off everything. The wheels are falling off the mainstream media. They're falling off the political system, off the money system, off the war on terror. Everyone's seeing everything for what it is. So hopefully it's a time for people to rediscover themselves and, wipe the sleep from their eyes and stand up a little bit.
Yeah. No doubt. Now, a lot of times I've heard you reference I think all of us know here, we don't have to preface anything, that politics is just a show. It's a game show. It's an illusion. It's just a TV channel that needs to be changed. But you've kind of hinted that the powers that be go beyond the perception, our four-dimension perceptions, that it goes into the metaphysical. I'd like to hear you kind of flesh that out a little bit.
Well, when you think about concepts like of the force, the good side and the dark side, the energy that all comes from, everything comes from. If you can understand that like I talk about in the film The Awakening, everything is made of energy. It's made of photon light and photon sound, and the energy is conscious. That energy is what we all come from, and you're simply a frequency of consciousness. I'm a frequency of the same consciousness, and everything else is as well. And it's understanding that what's really going on is this battle between good and bad, light and dark, positive and negative, whatever you want to call it, good and evil, whatever you want to label it. But it's two polarities of the same thing. This is what I was saying before about people going inside and seeing the shadow within themselves so that they can see the shadow within others, so they can understand what others are capable of, so they can understand their enemy. And that's really what's going on. I mean, so much of this system is designed to keep us in a state of fear. And the fear that we're in really is a fear of experiencing our own power. The power that we have to simply stand up and say, no, we don't want to do this. The power to face the evil. the darkness, the shadow, whatever you want to call it. Now, people won't face it because they're afraid of it, because they're afraid of what exists in themselves. And so much of this system is programming us, and is programming us not to look there, is programming us to, believe in love and light. And, if we look at the shadow, we give energy to it, Well, if we look at the shadow, we can actually heal the shadow. But we're trained not to. We're kept in this constant state of fear. I mean, this is an energy battle more than anything. The battle to control us is a battle more than anything of energy. It's a battle of fear and a battle of basically keeping us separated from ourselves and keeping us separated from each other. But that's through fear as well. As we were talking about earlier, the state of scarcity that we're all kept in, which keeps us competing with each other, keeps us judging each other by physical standards rather than by our moral standards or our spiritual standards, our standards of what is good and what is bad. I mean, that's really how we should be judged. That's really what real currency should be. Should be your level of virtue. Really would be an ideal currency to have in the world. Virtue points. That would be good. However we construe that. But that's really what the battle is. It's this, like they say in Star Wars, the Force, the dark side or the good side. That's the battle. That's the whole battle. And that battle's an internal battle, but it's a battle that we've got to fight internally, but we've got to apply it to the physical world we live in. Because we do it internally, then we don't apply it to the world. We think that that's all we have to do is maintain this state of love and light and sit in this little bubble of narcissism and worry about me. And that's not how it's done, It's understanding that it's an energy war that's going on here on all levels, happening in the metaphysical and in the physical. But we are part of both worlds. We're part of the metaphysical and the physical. We just choose to separate them. A lot of the New Age movement has done this as well. They say, this is a world of duality that you're living in. You've got to get out of the duality. Well, hang on. This is a world of duality. That's how we're able to have this conversation and even talk to each other, because it's a world of duality. It has to be a world of duality so we can experience ourselves and experience these emotional hurdles and learn how to overcome these emotional hurdles, learn what the dark side is and how to deal with it by facing it. When you look into the mirror of evil, you don't become evil. You see the good in yourself, and you see how you can, bring light to that evil. And it's as simple as that, bringing light to the darkness. That's all you have to do. There's no actual physical battle that needs to be fought. All you have to do is face the darkness and bring light to it. And that's the whole battle. And that's something that people just don't face. But yeah, it is very metaphysical, and it's something that we're steered very much away from. Even with all the spiritual teachings that we get from people, they never teach you to apply yourself to the world. They teach you how to reach these positions of nirvana or whatever, these emotional positions, these positions where you're in this good emotional flow and you're in this good positive energy, but they fail to teach you that you need to apply it to the world. This is why I finish every show with In Lakesh. I'm another yourself. If we can view the world like that and view each other as ourselves and interact with each other as ourselves and follow like the one rule of do not do unto others anything that you would not have done unto you. That is a good rule to follow. Not do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I mean, you may be a masochist. You may like getting beaten up. Maybe that's not the right way to approach things. But do not do to anyone that which you would not have done to you. And that would be a great way to start things, I think. I hope that all made sense.
Made perfect sense to me, man. Now, kind of getting on to the metaphysical, you talk about this being a people farm. All spiritual texts, and obviously the non-commodity library talks about outside of our, this reality that we perceive, entities known as the archons. Are you familiar with like the Book of Enoch and the discussion of an entity that may be feeding off of us energetically? Inflicting trauma here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, talk of the archons. This is what the Native Americans talk about with the predator mind. You talk about in the Castaneda books. There's all sorts of theories about what this is. The Wetiko virus that the Native Americans talk about, that which causes us to do all these wrong things we know are wrong, but we do them anyway. That which feeds off our soul energy, that which feeds off our fear, feeds off all these things. I mean, it's quite possible that these sorts of things exist. It's quite possible that's where, evil, in inverted commas, comes from. But I mean, all I can do is speculate on that. I have no first-hand knowledge of so many of these things. These are topics that I don't often discuss because all I can really do is speculate on what I've read in books by other people. I've got the Nagamani Library. I've read it. It's very, very, very difficult to comprehend a lot of what is actually in the English translation of the Nagamani Library. Most people talking about archons are usually referring to the work of John Lash because that's mainly where that concept of archons as mind parasites comes from. A lot of people fail to give John Lash credit in that, but I think that's where that comes from. I mean, I can only speculate on it. It is highly possible, but at the same time, even thinking that that's what's going on can be very disempowering for people unless you can see what the remedy to it is. I mean, sure, the remedy may well be awareness of it, having awareness of it. I mean, I think that just having awareness that a lot of the thoughts you're thinking may not be your own thoughts. A lot of these thoughts of disempowerment that you're having may not be your own thoughts. A lot of the thoughts of despair that you're having may not be your own thoughts. I mean, I find this sort of stuff sort of good to consider when considering things such as the archons and mind parasites and all this sort of stuff. But, I mean, is it true? I don't know. I really don't know. It's a possibility, but I don't think it's in a way, it's kind of a cop-out. In a way, it's kind of people giving responsibility for their own tolerance of evil to somebody else and thinking, well, I do this because I'm manipulated by a mind parasite. Well, maybe you are, maybe you're not, but having that knowledge, maybe you can be aware of these thoughts now and maybe you can work not to tolerate this stuff and not to feed these entities if these entities are indeed there.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there you go. Even if it is something from without, or if it is that which is already contained within us, either way, the disease is the same, and it seems as though you would treat it the same. So, the idea that it's an entity from without, or it's simply part of the condition, it doesn't mean that you don't have to deal with it, right, Max?
Well, exactly. There's even thoughts and concepts of parasites that exist within us that interfere with our thoughts. Because really when you have a thought, the thought is really imbued in the heart. The thought begins in the heart before it gets to the mind. The thought travels from the heart up to the mind, and then it travels back to the heart. So there's something that seems to interfere with these heartfelt thoughts that we have that create doubts, and they kind of interfere with the thought process before it gets to our brain. And they interject all these doubts and these different paths and different possibilities rather than allowing this pure heart thought to develop within us. So there's a thought that that's perhaps some sort of parasitic force, perhaps that's an archontic force or whatever as well. So, but it's being aware of it that is the problem. Being aware of it is half the battle. The fact that these thoughts may not be your own. And if you listen to your heart, you really listen to your heart. Stop letting your mind and your head get in the way. Get out of your mind. Get back into the now and follow what your heart tells you to do. I think we're going to find a way out of this mess. I think too many people analyze their thoughts. They analyze their hearts. They analyze their intuition too much. They don't realize that their intuition is the field talking to them. And they start questioning it and they start, getting analytical about it rather than just following their heart. Now, I think that's what people need to do. If more people would do that, I think we'd change the world very quickly.
Mm. No, I agree. Well, Sherry, I know that this is right up the alley of where you're usually hanging out. And I know you haven't had a lot to say, but what do you think of this part of the discussion?
Well, I agree. Absolutely. I think that, I go into this with the work that I do on the cellular somatic level on a very deep perspective, because I do feel that we are in creation of what we are experiencing, but I also have recently changed a lot of the perspectives of what I thought was true. I am realizing, again, may just be another indoctrination and another part of what I'm now considering to be the story that we're all living. That's a big part of it for me right now, is that it's just a story. Because none of this, it's not that it's not real in the physical, but when you take a look and you think about what kind of book do you want to read? Do you want to read a book that is analytical and is boring? Or do you want to have villains and heroes and excitement and all of these types of things. And I'm more questioning if that is more of what this reality is than any of the other things that I believed. Who knows?
Well, seems to me like I would like some analysis along with the the entertainment. I appreciate both. I'm not bored by analysis, but then again, that's my vibration. Daniel,
all the world's a stage, and all of us are players. So we're all the masks of God, and we got nobody to blame but ourselves for all that.
And there are many different roles in the theater, Daniel. There are many different roles. Some people might just be narrators. Others, who knows, right?
Writers, directors. What I thought was funny, Max, was you talk about listen to your heart. I came through the Baptist indoctrination machine, and one of the things that they adamantly beat over your head is do not listen to your heart. And they cite a passage that says the heart of man is deceitfully wicked above all, who can know it. And what you said about following your intuition, following your heart and everything, with my background, and I go, Jesus, they really didn't want me to listen to my heart. But when you actually go back and kind of look at it, from my perspective anyway, in context, it's talking about the fleshly heart, not the heart chakra that the Christ Spirit was talking about, which naturally makes your life to where the maxim of first do no harm is just automatic. It's like breathing. You don't have to think about it when you're listening to that heart. You don't have to have that inner dialogue. Should I steal this jacket? It's not in you. So I find it funny that organized religion has this thing where they distort scriptures or teachings to say don't listen to your heart. In direct opposition to true freedom of the self, really. But that's just me going on.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's because of their portrayal of what the heart is, like you say. You're talking about this fleshly heart. Well, that's not the heart. This is the mind. It's not the heart. The heart is doing good. The heart knows. The heart is connected to the field. The heart is having an electromagnetic conversation with the field all the time, and it's projecting into that field all the time, and the field is mirroring back to you. When you're squashing your heart feelings, I mean, there's disgusting teachings for a religious organization to teach to people. Do not listen to your heart. I mean, this absolutely creates a totally inhuman attitude in people. And even with like I said, the misconception of what the heart is. I mean, very, very insidious, a lot of these teachings, very much designed to disempower people and just enslave people to a doctrine. Unfortunately, Christianity has very, very little to do with Christ, and that should be apparent to everybody.
Very little. Very little.
We're coming to that time when we've got about, 10 solid minutes left, and I sort of want to get everybody to tie it up into a nice little package, their thoughts about what we've discussed and where we've gone tonight. And I really want to kick it off with Sherry here, because, well, first of all, she hadn't had a lot to say. I wound up running my mouth a lot. We definitely wanted to give Max center stage here tonight. So, that's the way it is. And Daniel, uncharacteristically, was pretty quiet for the majority of the show as well. So let's begin with Sherry, though. What do you think of all what we discussed tonight?
Well, again, I always love Wednesdays because I just gain knowledge. And Max, honestly, and you know this, I call on you when I'm freaking out about whatever it is that I don't know what's going on, or, the recent DMT experience I had. We haven't really gotten to have the discussion that I wanted, but there's things that I always appreciate. And even though I feel like we're all kind of in these circles and we're all kind of evolving into whatever it is, it's so relieving in some ways to hear that other people are experiencing either similar, or even if it's totally different, it's like people that are actually opening up their minds to what the capabilities are and what's actually happening, instead of all the, doom and gloom and stuff that we, like you said, we already know that all this is going on. So now what? What are we going to do about it? I like that very much. And Daniel, as always, I think you did great. You asked a lot of great questions. And so I didn't feel like I needed to say much. I was just listening. It was great.
Mm. No, for the most part, it's really great to hear, Max, because the fact is that everything is very simple, very grounded, very even in the way he discusses it. I love that about him. Every time I hear him, he sounds this way. I've been told that he doesn't always sound this way, but listen, nobody is entirely consistent at all times. But the thing is, I love listening to him because it just gives me a sense of calm, and a refreshing bit of perspective, no matter how many hours he's been out there talking to people and giving presentations and all of that. Every time I hear him, it sounds a little bit new, even if I am hearing some of the same things or some of the same concepts revisited one way or another, always sounds new. So, extremely grateful that Max was on. But Daniel, your final words for tonight.
Max, man, I just want to say, dude, it's been a pleasure and an honor. I mean, I'm serious. Your voice has been a guest in my home for years, and the stuff that the bricks that you've laid behind you to make a path for others to kind of follow in and then diversify all from, it really, really has made more of an effect than I think you'll ever really know. I mean, a lot of, you really are making a difference, dude. And I just want to let you know that I appreciate it. I know there's a lot of other people out there who appreciate it. And as far as energetically, I got 3 candles lit beside me, sending energy your way so that you can keep doing it and waking up other minds so that they can express the same message we're all expressing from their unique places in the world and in their own life. But I just want to let you know, dude, it's been an honor. I hope I could do a podcast with you, one day, because for real, it's, you don't take a candle and put it under a bushel, that's for sure. And you've been a light for me, and I know a lot of other people. So just keep doing it, man. Just keep doing it till there's no breath in that meat sack.
Well, thank you, brother.
And the thing is,
go
ahead.
I really do appreciate what you said, Daniel. I really appreciate the words, and thank you very much. Very, very humbling. Thank you.
It is what it is, man. We're all walking each other home.
Exactly. And believe it or not, an influence over me, although you might not want to claim that very often, Max, a bit of an influence over me when it comes to me discussing things calmly and taking a step back. I do think of you often. And the deal is, Daniel Lewis Crumpton has the downloadedcontent.com. That is his website. And that's where that podcast that he was asking Max to be on originates from. Also, Sherry Wisdom is the host of Elemental Evolution, which is heard on various networks, including American Freedom Radio. And my website is Ochelli.com, Ochelli.com. Yeah, I threw that one in there toward the end. Sorry. Self-plugging. But Max, the final word on everything tonight I want to give to you. Of course, I do advise people, if they've never been there, go to thecrowhouse.com. That's all one word, crowhouse, just like it sounds, .com, and check out the repository of great information and calm that is present there. So I'd like to give you the final word tonight, Max.
Well, look, thanks for asking me on. And as I've said, I really hope that people see this as the opportunity that it is providing for them. I mean, ultimately, America needs Trump. They need the world to happen, and they need the situation to happen the way it has, so they wake up to themselves. Hopefully they will seize the opportunity to do so. That's what this is. I mean, this whole political situation is a complete farce. And it's important to look beyond it and to see how they're being played with this whole left-right paradigm. There's all this stuff going on behind the scenes, all the stuff we've talked about on the show today, the transhumanist agenda, the chemtrails are still being sprayed, you're still eating GM food, they're still bombing kids in Yemen, they're still bombing people in Syria, the posturing against Iraq and Russia is still happening, the war on terror is still happening, the human harvesting is still happening. Nothing's changed, folks. Everything's going ahead. So it's important that people see that and they don't fall prey to this identity politics, and they don't fall prey to just becoming a cheer squad behind whichever political party they think is going to lead them to safety, because no one's going to lead them to safety if they're not prepared to do it themselves. So hopefully they'll see that opportunity. And I'd be happy to come on to your show anytime, Daniel. Just add me on Skype, and happy to come on any time. But yeah, this is a great opportunity for people. So hopefully they'll embrace this opportunity and step back and see how they're being played. Trump isn't going to save anybody. They have to do it themselves, and this is the time we can do it. So let's all step up to the plate and get involved.
Absolutely. Insert any name. The truth is the solution to all of your problems are you. And nobody is going to be your savior, I'm sorry to tell you, except maybe you. And that's the way it works. So that's the end of the show for tonight. And I do appreciate, of course, Sherry Wisdom for being with me every Wednesday, or nearly every Wednesday, I should say. Once in a while we do cancel or whatever, but nearly every Wednesday putting up with me being my co-host. Daniel Lewis Crumpton, who has been a constant on Wednesdays recently and will continue with that trend. And, of course, our special guest tonight, Max Igan, thecrowhouse.com. I'm telling you, go over there because just listening to some of those radio shows, reading some of what Max has written will be helpful to you, no matter what it is you think of what I do, in case you stumbled across this by accident. Go listen to what Max has to say. It's definitely very different from what I do.